Welcome, everyone, to Authors on the Air. I'm your host, Pam Stack. We are proud to be part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Today, I have the absolute pleasure and delight to bring to you Kerry Anne King, aka Carrie Schaefer, aka the Goat Queen. You'll have to go on her page and ask her why I call her that. Kerry is also the host of Tell Me Your Secrets, a video podcast in the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. And most important of all, we're friends. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Pam.
It's so nice to see you.
I know. I forgot to bring my goats. I left them.
Next time you have to bring the staff too, and the herding dog. Today we're here to talk about Kerry's new book, Other People's Things. Now, Kerry writes into, and it's right behind her on her screen too. So we're giving it plenty of airtime. Isn't that a beautiful cover, the color? I went to pluck this off my bookshelf and it was so easy to find. I knew it was the pretty cover. So for those of you who don't know, Kerry writes in two different genres. As Kerry Anne King, she writes with a little bit of the supernatural twist. And as Carrie Schaefer, she writes women's fiction.
Reverse
that.
Sorry.
Kerry Anne King, she writes the women's fiction. It's Carrie Schaefer, she writes the supernatural bit. Sorry about that. It's all the same to me. It's Kerry writing books.
Yeah.
So Other People's Things is her new release. This is put out by Lake Union, which is an Amazon imprint, for those of you who don't know, and some of the best women's fiction you're ever going to find. And Kerry's right up there with the best of the best. So let me tell you a little bit about Kerry. These are the things I know that are not in her bio. She lives at the upper northwest point of the world, probably close to goats and reindeer. She lives on a big piece of property that has an old boat in the backyard that she turned into like a guest room. I don't want to go and visit her. It's like her Airbnb room. She's married to a man whom she calls the Viking. She will never show his picture, although she did show me his shadow because he's a big, tall guy. And the fact of the matter is he doesn't even like to be on social media. He wants nothing to do with her writing stuff. He just wants her to cook, clean, and get babies for him. That wasn't your Viking. That was somebody else.
That's not my Viking. No. Oh, my God. Actually, that's so funny, Pam, because somebody followed me today on social media. It was one of those guy follow things.
Right.
And I looked at his profile and it was looking for a God-fearing woman for a relationship. And I was like, I am not your type, buddy.
Barefoot, pregnant, and cooking and cleaning, right? Yeah. Every modern woman wants that. We're in a hurry for that. Kerry, this is not your first time on this show. And of course, we get to see you often on Tell Me Your Secrets. But for those who have not ever met you before, I don't understand how that can happen. I want to talk about your background because your background isn't actually as a writer until your business life. You may have always wanted to write, but your business life kind of got in the way for a little while. So tell us about when you started writing and what you were doing until you got to this point.
Yeah, not just my business life got in the way of my writing, my life got in the way of my writing. So really, even as a child, I loved books and I wanted to write. And I started writing poetry around sixth grade or whatever. And then I was messing around with writing things ever after. But I got married young. I was 21 and he was 20. And I had been raised in the good God-fearing woman sort of philosophy. So I really did believe in doing the good wifey thing. He was a musician and I believed his career was more important than mine. And I promoted his music and then we had kids. So things just kept happening. It took me 10 years to write my first novel. I was a nurse. I became a mental health counselor. I raised children. I did all the things. And then actually my husband died suddenly and traumatically when I was 39. What a year for such a thing to happen. Yeah. And that was when the lights really came on for me, though, when I realized that nobody was just going to show up one day and say, hey, your schedule's clear. You want to be a writer? Here's all the time in the world. It's not ever going to happen. So I just got serious. I'm going to write books now and I'm going to make time for that and I'm going to submit them. So I started doing that few years after that, my first book was published. It was a Carrie Schaefer book. It was fantasy, a book called Between. And I just kept writing books. Somewhere along the line, my agent said, hey, you should try writing women's fiction. You're a mental health counselor. You get this family complications, psychological drama, suspense stuff.
Sure.
So that's how Kerry Anne King came to be. And now here we are on book 6 as Kerry Anne King with other people's things.
I love it. I think that's great. You know, it's interesting. You said at 39 you were a widow, and
I don't use that word. We don't use that W word.
Okay. You were alone.
Yeah, there you go.
At that time, I remember, and thinking back now, that 40 was the best time of my life. I mean, it was the most fun. I, was doing so many things, and I really enjoyed my 40s. I felt like I had come into myself as a woman. I was doing everything I wanted to do. And interestingly enough, I still am, but 40 seems to be that tipping point. Do you think so too?
I really, and it sounds kind of counterintuitive because, of course, it was really sad
Sure.
to lose somebody that you'd been with for that long. And I did love him and he was a good person. But yeah, in so many ways, there was so much freedom from that. I no longer felt the need to live up to what was expected of me. I really stepped over a lot of traces at that time and felt free to begin exploring who I really wanted to be and stopped worrying about what everybody thought. Because you really have to. It's like why I don't like the W word. It's like, the good widow is going to stay home nicely and raise her children and be sort of subdued. And no, sorry. No.
Well, I mean, and plus you were married so young, so you fell into traditional roles.
I did.
Just because you hadn't lived long enough to know that you didn't have to have traditional roles.
Right.
And which is why I never advocate for anyone to get married in your 20s. It seems to me you change your mind so much about who you are because you haven't lived long enough as an adult. I mean, people change political parties, they change religious and philosophical beliefs. So I'm a big believer in waiting. And now I'm a believer in never doing it again. So, don't ever do it if you can get away with it, Anyway, so Other People's Things is your follow-up book, and they're not related. These are standalone books.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to talk because you have such a great description on the back. Jailbird, Klepto, spectacular failure to launch. Nicole Wood's sticky fingers have earned her many names, but it's not that she's stealing. Some objects need to be moved elsewhere. I love that description more than anything. It is such a perfect opening for someone who wants to read this book. Tell us a little bit about Dear Nicole Wood.
Dear Nicole, poor Nicole. She just has this issue, not an issue. Ever since she was a child, she has sensed that some objects really just are not in the right place and need to be elsewhere. It's a compulsion, really, for her. One of these objects shows up and it must be moved. So as you can imagine, when you're somebody who has an object relocation program, to your parents, your family, your teachers, the law enforcement people, it looks like maybe something a little other because those things belong to other people who want them to stay where they are. So she has got herself in a lot of trouble over the years. It's made her into a high school dropout. She's been in and out of jail. She's got a record. It's hard to get a job when you're a relocator of objects. And the latest thing that she's done is relocated a rather large sum of money that belongs to her lawyer husband. So now she's looking at maybe prison, definitely a divorce. Life is not going so well for her.
When I first saw the title of your book, it kind of reminded me of the old film, Other People's Money. I think Danny DeVito was in it. And he was a relocator of funds and not in a good way. So it was really a lot of fun to read this because most of the objects she relocated, and that's a great title for her, her avocation and her vocation as a relocator of objects. But most of them were harmless in the beginning. And like any other compulsion, it works its way up. So when you were writing this book, did the words flow easily to you?
Yes, as a matter of fact. Well, let me qualify that. It began really well. I called it the gift book. For about the first 3/4 of the book, it seemed like in many ways it was just writing itself, and it was so much fun, and I loved it. And I'd just sit down, and the words would flow and be, "Oh, look, I wrote so many words today." Wow. And then I got really, really stuck. About 3/4 of the way through, as things happen, often for me, as a matter of fact. So I was in the shower hanging out with my muse. That's where my muse lives. I think lots of muses live in the shower. I don't know exactly why they like to hang out there, but they do. So I was hanging out in the shower, and all of a sudden this character showed up that wasn't in the book yet at all. I have to say, again, 3/4 of the way through, he announced that his name was Hawk, that he was a private investigator, and that he had come to solve all of my problems. So, yes, I embraced that and him immediately and wrote him in. And that was a little trickier.
So when you come to a block like that, because this has always fascinated me, because everybody says, well, you don't have a writer's block, you have a storyline or a character block. And maybe that's true. I don't know, because, I'm not a writer. But when you finally have that revelation and you say, I know where I'm going. And like you said, you're 3/4 of the way through the book. How do you backtrack Hawk into the story? Or do you?
Well, yeah, it's not backtrack. It's go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning and write him in. He belonged. Anybody who's read the book is going to tell you he totally belongs there. As a matter of fact, I've been getting a whole bunch of requests for a sequel or a series to this book with Hawk and Nicole. People love them both, which is making me very happy. I knew where he needed to be, and I knew how he needed to be. So it was just a question of redrafting things to work him in, and not every scene needed him added in, but many did. And then he needed some scenes of his own. As a matter of fact, at one point, my editors wanted me to cut his point of view, like keep him, but take away his point of view chapters. And I was like, So I actually amped it up. I actually gave him more scenes instead of taking them away. Because he needed to be there, and it was very clear. I think once I'm really clear on something and I have that epiphany moment, then I will just do whatever it takes to make it work.
Yeah. I like sidekicks that have their own storyline too, and their own POV and their own dialogue and their own background and all, and that they can wander off the pages without the lead character being there to support them. I think that's how you've got a great sidekick character. So I think of like the Fox and O'Hare books that Janet Ivanovich writes with a multitude of people. I think about, like Bob Crace writes about Elvis, but his sidekick is Joe Pike, who's every bit as important in there. So there are a lot of sidekicks that demand their own stories. And so I'm thrilled that you inserted him. And I like the name anyway, because it always reminds me of Spencer and Hawk. So, and I love that character more than life itself. I thought it was the best, especially in the TV show. So I'm partial to names. Names to me are just a really important part of a book. They have to, names to me are part of the descriptor of that character. And that's a great name for a private investigator. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's not really, as you'll find out, and I can't tell you this in the book because it's actually kind of part of a little joke and it's a giveaway, but it's not his real name.
Well, we know that. You and I know that. It's the people who haven't read the book yet.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out once you read it. It's a delightful book. And your book just released on the 21st. So last week. I know you've been chatting, you've been busy promoting it and everything. Are you going to stick for a while as Kerry Anne King and maybe move on to another one of these? Or are you going to go back to Carrie Schaefer?
I'm both people all times. So this is why I've made my website Be All Things Kerry, because I've got both of me are writing all the time. So I actually just released a new Carrie Schaefer in July.
Right.
So Dead Before Dinner is out in the world. I have a contract for another Kerry Anne King book, which I am currently finishing. It's due to my editor on Friday. It's not quite
in this one, or is
it's a standalone. It's another standalone. I am considering writing another book to follow up other people's things, but I need permission to do that.
Yeah, I would love to see it because it's a fun book. I loved it. It's heartbreaking in some areas, but it's funny. But it's a really great book. It's unlike anything I've read in a long time. Kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, who are you reading, or do you even have time to read others? Now, you and I share a love of fantasy books. Mm-hmm. So, have you read anything really good lately? And if not, what are you reading, if you are?
I'm reading all the time. Really, honestly, what I'm reading right this minute is The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Ormsby. I love these books. Love. I can't have enough love. This is his second in a series. The first book was called The Thursday Murder Club. It's about a group of 70-plus-year-old people who gather together on Thursdays to solve cold cases, and then an actual murder happens. That was in the first book. This second one takes it even deeper because these characters are amazing. I love that he is writing about older people who are still very smart, very capable, maybe pretty devious. This book totally did not disappoint at all. I read the first page and I was just so happy. I was just like dancing pretty much.
That. A lot of writers tell me that they can't read while they're writing because they don't want the overflow of words. They don't want to get it by osmosis. That's not a problem with you, though.
It depends. I have to be careful about what I'm reading. Like with writing a Kerry Anne King book, I may not want to be reading a lot of deep women's fiction. Although honestly, no, I just read. I read. Every now and then I'll find a book that I know I shouldn't be reading while I'm writing what I'm writing because the voice is going to spill over and give me some trouble. But I can't not read, Pam. Yeah, it's like breathing. I mean, how can you not?
I agree. I had a strategy session this weekend with some of our admin team, and it was amazing, but I didn't get to read. I was almost shaking because going 2 or 3 days without opening a book is very traumatic for me. The number of books that I read. So that was difficult for me. But tell me your secret. Tell me a secret about you. Tell me something that nobody knows about you, but you don't mind telling.
Oh dear. Now you're picking on me because you know that I have the Tell Me Your Secret show.
Hey, really? It could be a hobby we don't know about. It could be you love to cook a certain kind of food. Yeah. It might be, you take off your clothes and dance in the moonlight. I don't know. You practice Wiccan, and that's fine too.
My secret goat. Let me see. Something that not many people know about me. I will tell you that I am a kombucha maker.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, what does that entail? It's fermented something or other, isn't it?
It's fermented. It has this really grody thing. It's called the mother. It cracks me up all the time. Okay. On the top of you brew tea and you mix tea, water, and sugar together in a jar, and it has this thing. It looks like a placenta on top.
It's a layer on top, right? Just like red wine vinegar. Yeah, I know.
No, it's worse than red wine. It's a disgusting looking object. But it makes the kombucha into kombucha. It's very cool. And then it's tasty.
What is the flavor sweet or savory or what?
It's sweet-ish. It's a little bit like vinegar, but it's a little bit spicy. It's a little sweeter than vinegar. Sparkly. I don't know how to tell you. It's a little fizzy. You've never tasted kombucha?
I don't, because I don't buy those things in the store. I buy organic tea leaves and I brew my own tea, in a specially made pot, and I strain it, and I only use organic teas and honeys and things like that. So I'm not one that's ever had an interest in buying it. Just like I make my own yogurt versus going into the store because it's so much better. I make my own, hummus. So
you need to start making kombucha. There you go.
Is it good for you for some reason?
Yes, it is. It's really good for you. It's got all kinds of good
probiotics.
That's the word I was looking for. Yep.
Prebiotic and probiotic. You'll have to send me the recipe. In the meantime, you said All Things Kerry is your website, but you can also just type in Kerry Anne King or Kerry Schaefer. It automatically directs you to All Things Kerry. It's a fun site to look on because you see the split personality of my friend here. Goat herder on one side, goat goddess on the other side. You can't beat it. And if you don't have, you better put a goat on there. I'm telling you.
I probably should. There are no goats on my website.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Oversight.
Where can we find your books, please?
Well, okay. Of course, the almighty Amazon. All of the Kerry Anne King ebooks you are going to find only on Kindle because of being an Amazon imprint. The paperbacks you can find everywhere. Except for probably indie stores because some of them don't like Amazon very much and then you can't get the books in. Which is unfortunate, but you can always ask. You can find Kerry Schaefer also Amazon, other places. You just have a look. You may be in your local library, and as authors, we always appreciate if you don't find it in the library. If you ask your librarian to get it in,
That's right. Do you have an audio book, an Audible book for your stories? Good.
I do. All of them, as a matter of fact. So, well, not quite all, but all of the Kerry Anne King books are on Audible, narrated by the lovely Terry Clark Linden. And Terry, except for I did Everything You Are was narrated by another awesome, we had a male narrator for that one because it seemed to need it. So that was cool. Terry and I have also partnered up for my Kerry Schaefer indie books, and she has done my Shadow Valley Manor books for me, and Dead Before Dinner is currently in review and will be up on Audible any day now.
How fun.
Yeah.
Anyone you want to give a shout out to, Kerry?
So many people. Maddie Dawson. Love Maddie Dawson. Her books and mine have some things in common. A little bit of magic with our women's fiction. Also, Barbara Davis, same thing. She has a new book out, The Keeper of Happy Endings. You should totally read that. It's been prime reads this month, top of the charts. Moving into regular to buy coming up on the 1st. Those one more. Another women's fiction with magical elements. I've been collecting them. Willa Reese needs a shout out. This is her first book as Willa Reese. It's a new name change for her. It's called Wildwood Whispers, which is another fun book with magic in it and characters on a growth journey. So I am loving all of those right now.
I love it. You're going to be taking a little hiatus to finish up some things, and then you'll be back at the beginning of the year with Tell Me Your Secrets. I love your show. It's so much fun, and you're always laughing with all your guests. So I want to remind everyone that they can stop by Tell Me Your Secrets and listen to all of your, either watch the video or listen to the show on multiple platforms. We're on audio and video everywhere. Please go to Tell Me Your Secrets, which you can find on Kerry's website, or you can find it in Facebook, correct?
Yes, and it's on Apple Podcasts, all of those places you can find it.
Stitcher, Apple, Google, you name it, it's there. It's everywhere. And we're also on YouTube and Twitch and every place. So go. Kerry, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me. I get to see your sweet face and have a conversation with you.
Thank you. I love talking to you. Listeners, thank you. And viewers, thank you for being with me. This is Kerry Anne King, a.k.a. Kerry Schaefer. The new book is called Other People's Things. It's a fun book to read. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks for being with me, everybody, and thank